Good evening, dear friends. It's so lovely to see you again. And this is our very last meeting of the year, but we've kept the best for last. So we have two wonderful guests joining us today. And we'll be discussing eczema, the new developments, and access to new developments. Now, let me introduce our two guests. You will recognize Dr. Thulja Trikamjee there with a beautiful red background. She's been with us before with a very lively discussion that we had on food allergies, if I remember correctly, Thulja. You just have to correct me if I'm wrong. She's an allergologist and a specialist pediatrician that is based in Cape Town, although she is in Joburg today, apparently, she tells me. And then we have Kelly du Plessis, who is the CEO and founder of Rare Diseases South Africa, where she advocates for healthcare equity for those impacted by rare diseases. And Kelly is joining us from Basel. So we have people from all over joining us today, but we're very much looking forward to the discussion that will follow. Um, and we're going to jump right in with, oh, yes, sorry, I always forget this. We need your questions, so please start posting them right away that we can make a list and discuss it in the Q&A. And then also, if we, for whatsoever reason, don't get to your questions, then we will be discussing them anyway afterwards, and we will be getting back to you. So don't panic if we don't manage to get there. We have a very full program. And we're going to jump in with Dr. Thulja, who is going to talk about the new eczema developments, the new eczema treatments. Thulja, you want to take it away?
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. It's so lovely to be here with Suretha and Kelly on our last event for the year. And I think eczema is something that really impacts patients in a big way. So people will be very excited to know that there's a lot of research in eczema, in the immunology of eczema, in the skin barrier itself. And after all the research is done, we understand better exactly how eczema is found, how eczema develops, and what drives the eczema. And that part is important because a lot of the new developments and the new treatments we have are targeting this. A lot of us who suffer from eczema, and it's extremely common, I'm sure many people who have it are nodding right now. A lot of us who suffer from it see the effect of it from the outside. But when we're talking new treatments, what we're talking is exactly what's going on below what you can see. So below your skin barrier, below what we refer to as your epidermis, which is the top, and what these new treatments, which we refer to as biologics. Biologics have long been around in the world. They form a realm of what we refer to as precision medicine. And essentially what precision medicine says to a patient is that we don't want to treat the symptoms, we want to treat the cause. And that's a nice way of understanding what biologics do. And with eczema, because we know that your immune system is heavily involved, because your skin is the largest organ of your immune system, what these new drugs do is they target what is that inflammation in the immune system below the skin, below what you can see, that's driving the constant eczema. Because patients with eczema know I have good days and I have bad days. I have good months and I have bad months. And sometimes I'm actually not sure, am I mild, am I moderate, am I severe? And what we want to target is the inflammation, or what we refer to as the inflammatory markers. And I think Suretha and I did a talk about biologics in eczema a while ago. And she used this analogy. I remember, Suretha, she said that what these drugs do is basically you've got a lock and you've got a key, and the key goes into the lock and it unlocks that actual gene or that actual cell or that actual protein that's driving this constant eczema. There are many drugs that are available. I'm not going to talk too much about the specific drugs, but essentially, I mean, that's the exciting bit. We've got topical ones, meaning that there's newer creams that are available that target inflammation. And when we say newer creams, we're referring to things that are not corticosteroids, all those who with eczema will know that they have or would have been prescribed corticosteroids. And then we've got the drugs that worked beneath the surface at that inflammation.
Mm. Yeah, no, the new developments in eczema really make me very excited. And there are new medications being developed on a daily basis. And of course, we also have some of these drug trials running in South Africa at the moment, as we're being included in worldwide research. So that is actually really fantastic. I have to say that I'm very impressed by all of these questions already. We're going to have to keep to our time very accurately. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get to all of these questions. So thanks for that, our lovely audience. Maybe we can move on to Kelly, because Kelly, I think it's the best place to start is for you to explain to us, how did you end up where you are now in this really very dynamic position that you are at the moment?
Yeah, so my son was diagnosed with a very rare condition at 11 months. To get to that point was a journey in itself, to get him to an accurate diagnosis. And obviously in the rare disease space, very, very little access to information. And then, after we were given the bombshell that he had this rare condition, we were told that, don't get your hopes up about getting treatment. It's not available in South Africa. The product was not only unregistered, it's incredibly expensive. And so I was thrown into the world of patient advocacy overnight as a young 25-year-old, with this little baby that I'd been told wouldn't see a second birthday if he didn't get access to his treatment. And so there's no way to really learn other than banging your head against the wall a few times. So, all the advice that I give and all my knowledge has come from having to actually navigate that from a personal perspective. And so the journey of patient advocacy started, and that is how Rare Diseases South Africa came into fruition.
Yeah, and you've helped so many people since, eh? So, sorry, when exactly did you establish Rare Diseases?
So formally we established in 2013. So we're going on 12 years now.
Wow. Yeah. And you've been involved with many more conditions than your son's condition, eh?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, I think the challenge of advocacy is that it impacts, everyone is a healthcare user in some way. Even the people who decline us on a day-to-day basis, they also are healthcare users, and therein lies the irony, I think. And the truth is that if you can get the access journey right for a rare disease patient, it will generally have positive impacts on other disease systems, because of the fact that we're so complicated and we deal with a multitude of issues. We have multi-systemic conditions most of the time. A lot of our treatments are incredibly expensive. So as a result of that, it's very easy for us to provide advice and guidance to more common conditions, because the fundamentals remain the same. It's just that the rare disease patient is often dealing with 5 or 6 of the issues at one time, whereas the common disease patients might only be dealing with 1 or 2.
Yeah. I must say that we know that eczema is such a very common condition, but thankfully, a very small percentage of people with eczema will have very, very severe disease. So we're really if we're looking at the new developments, we're probably looking at a much smaller percentage than this vast majority of people that actually have eczema. So it's a very small percentage of people with eczema that will have very severe disease and that will need more advanced medications. So the biologics that Dr. Thulja referred to. So what problems are you experiencing? What are you seeing on a day-to-day basis um, dealing with rare diseases? South Africa, I mean.
We see a lot of emotionally spent individuals. And I think, the dermatology space is heartbreaking, because for many rare disease patients, they look completely, you wouldn't pick them out of a lineup. For the dermatology patients, they literally wear their problems on their skin. And yeah, it often just breaks my heart. So we're dealing with emotionally spent individuals. You're dealing with people who are incredibly frustrated. Often they have financial impact. You know, you're paying for products. You know, the creams, etc., are often very, very expensive. You need them all the time. And you have very, very little support from a day-to-day perspective. And I think that that's why, you know, when you asked me to do this, I wholeheartedly agreed, and I jumped at the opportunity because there are really useful tidbits that can make the journey that much easier. And it's just understanding how to navigate your medical scheme, how to ask for specific stuff, what the process is to follow, and all of that, which can hopefully reduce some of the day-to-day frustrations that patients experience.
Yeah, because I have to tell you, you know, coming from a doctor's perspective, we also constantly this medical aid is just this big do I want to say monster? I'm not 100% sure, but it's this you know this giant, it feels like to me, that we are fighting against on a daily basis for our patients. But I have to say that one of the things that we'll also be discussing later, Thulja, is that how important it is to continue knocking on the door and to ask for this medication, to ask your doctor for the medication, ask the right doctors also for the medication, to be able to start that process. Hey, Kelly, because everything has to start somewhere.
Yeah. So I think one of the, you know, the big key learnings for me has been, and this comes from my engagement with the National Health Department a lot of the time, is that we know that patients are being denied access. And then we'll go complain to the National Health Department and they say, okay, show us where. Where are they being declined? And we can't actually direct them anywhere because the question hasn't been formally asked. It's been a conversation. A doctor might have said, look, you're never going to get it. It's not accessible. You know, medical aid doesn't pay for it. Okay, you still have to ask. Get the rejection, because when there's a rejection or someone has said no, then we can step in. Until such time as there's been a formal rejection, you can't say that it's been rejected, even though in principle it might have been. So that's my first advice to patients, is ask the question. I think it's imperative that patients understand how medical schemes in particular work. And it's not different in the state facilities. The process is just slightly different in state, but at both times, at a medical scheme, you need to have registered your condition. That's the first thing you have to do, regardless of whether you've been prescribed something or there is a request for an intervention. You still need to register your condition, because that helps pay for the doctor's appointments. It helps pay for any auxiliary therapies that might be required, etc. So there's various forms. Some of them, it's a PM prescribed minimum benefit form. Some of it's an out-of-hospital request. Some of it is the chronic disease list. But either way, you have to register your condition with your medical aid. The second thing to remember is once that condition is registered, from a billing perspective, now taking into account medical aids run on a massive accounting system, essentially, in order for them to link your condition to the claim that's being made, you have to utilize your ICD-10 code. Now, I see stuff every single day where the ICD-10 code is incorrect. This is the first thing you check. Has the right ICD-10 code been used? And you must know your ICD-10 code like you know your ID number. It's probably even more important than your ID number, because you can rely on your ID book if you forget your ID number. So your condition, know your ICD-10 code, write it on everything, on your doctor's file, on the scripts that you send, any claim that you send, make sure that your ICD-10 code is included, because they cannot pay out of a benefit without it linking back to that benefit. Otherwise, it's going to come out your savings. And it's not that anyone's done anything wrong. If they can't link it back to something, it simply just doesn't happen. So that's an important thing to acknowledge. So one, you've got to register your condition. Two, you've got to make sure your claims can link back to that registered condition. Three, you have to set out what your management plan is. And that is something that has to be done in consultation with your doctor. So you need to sit down and say, right, from a treatment perspective, we're looking for A, B, and C. From a follow-up perspective, we're looking for this. From a blood work perspective, we're looking for this. And you need to set out that plan. And the reason that that becomes important, in particular with regards to accessing high-cost products, is medical aids look at it like a business request. You wouldn't just walk into the bank and say, look, I'm looking for a business loan of 150,000 Rand. Like, you know, here's a serviette that I've put my grand idea on, like, give it to me. You have to say to them, look, this is the need. What is the need? The need is I have A, B, and C. We've prescribed this product. Why? Because we think that this product will have the best outcomes on these specific symptoms or this particular criteria. And you also have to include the things like your follow-up appointments, etc., because without those, you cannot monitor that you're having an accurate response to treatment. So I speak to patients often. I'm like, when last did you go to the cardiologist? Oh, no, 3 years ago. Why? Oh, because my medical aid hasn't paid for the appointments and I can't afford to go. No, it needs to be included in your care plan. And if it's included, then you make sure that you go annually or whatever's been prescribed. So those are some of the key things that you have. Medical scheme is managed healthcare. By terminology, managed healthcare means it's a process that you're managing. And if you do things right, automatically now you start seeing an improvement. And then the other thing is providing your schemes with feedback. So when you go for your 6-month appointment, ask your doctor for a quick report. Just write 3 lines on how well I'm doing or how bad I'm doing or what response we're seeing. Because that becomes imperative when now something new becomes available and you're wanting to access the new product and you qualify to access that new product. You have to go back to the medical scheme and show them that existing stuff is failing to work. And if you haven't documented that you're not having a great response, it now looks like you're just being reactive and you're wanting what's new because that's what's available. So you have to ensure that you're documenting it. And treatments that take place at home are very difficult because, you know, when you're in a hospital, you have a hospital file, you've got a nurse checking your temperature, your, you know, side effects, etc. At home, that responsibility becomes the responsibility of the patient. So keep a diary. And when you experience, even if it's a throb in your big toenail, whatever it might be, it might not seem like it's linked to anything, just keep track of it, because that provides you the basis to now go and say, look, I'm having A, B, and C. I've gone through with a medical scheme and we've had patients who've requested access to an innovative therapy, stating that they had tons of side effects on the existing one. And the medical aid went back 3 years and not once had that patient, even at Dischem, requested a medicine for nausea. And now I'm saying the patient's battling with nausea and this is why they're wanting the treatment change. And they're saying, well, show us where, because if the nausea was that bad, at some point they might have popped into the clinic asking them for a Valoid. And that's the detail that they can go back and check. So, you know, you have to just start keeping record. It seems like it might seem like it's not going to go anywhere. You don't know what medication is going to be available 5 or 10 years from now and how today's information can become imperative.
So there's a lot of work that a patient actually has to do from their side, a lot of responsibility that the patient also has from their side, isn't it? It sounds like, yeah.
So I think patients make the mistake. And as South Africans, I want to say we're quite entitled, particularly us in the private sector. When your medication hasn't arrived, it's the pharmacy didn't send it. When your script is expired, the doctor didn't know. It's no one else's responsibility other than yours. Take responsibility for the things that you can manage within that space, because we are the ones that deal with the side effects. When we have an interruption in treatment and we've now got a massive flare because we've had a break, it's us that deals with it. So try prevent that. Don't leave the responsibility up to anybody else. Do what you can. If you know that you're meant to go for your appointments and your follow-ups every 6 months, a script is only the maximum validity of a script in South Africa is 6 months. More than that. So mark down, I go in March and I go in September. The 3rd month and the 9th month of every year, that is when I need to get my new scripts. Put it in your diary, and a month before, make sure you've emailed your doctor's rooms and said, look, my script's about to expire. Please, can I have a new one? Don't wait until the day that your medicine hasn't arrived and you've now run out, because that also places unnecessary pressure on the healthcare system. You get frustrated with the doctor's receptionist because they can't give it back to you in 5 minutes, and it lands up becoming a problem. So just manage those processes. It's easy to do. You just need to find a bit of a system. Also, have a folder on your phone. Take photos of your scripts. As you get it, before you've handed it into the pharmacy, take a photo, because you never know when you're going to be asking. You might have to ask a locum to give you a script and they don't have your file and they don't know the dosage. You might land up on holiday somewhere and you land up being there for an extended period of time and you need to have a script filled. So it's as simple as having a folder on your phone. Keep access of your own records, because that is your responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility to do those things.
Wow, I am learning a lot tonight.
I love
Thulja, I don't know what
perspective, Suretha. I mean, I've never, I wish we could have Kelly empower patients more and more. I know she already does such sterling work, but I love that, Kelly, because, you know, patients essentially are not seeing the same doctor all the time. They're seeing different doctors. And so it's very difficult for one doctor who has a whole practice full of 50, 100, hundreds, thousands of patients to follow up every symptom, every side effect. But if you've got all those details at hand, and if you take responsibility for your own health, it's so much easier when you're making an application for anything. Because I know we're going to chat about this now, but when you make an application, the key is in all of the details. That's what the medical aids want. And those are the points that we can use to fight the medical aids. Is here are all the dates. This is the date that this happened. You know, if you had a massive allergic reaction, if you had the nausea that Kelly mentioned, if you had syncope, you fainted, or whatever it is, if you've got dates, times, what you used, and that really does make your motivation so much more strong when you're applying for upscaling that person's treatment.
Absolutely, and that's what the medical aids are looking for. They have a responsibility to all of their members to make sure that they make correct purchasing decisions. Now, we've all been out to dinner where you're on a budget and you've gone out to dinner with friends, and your friends order the prawn platter and you having the Caesar salad because you can't afford the prawns. And when the bill comes, they say, let's split it 6 ways. And you're going, well, hold on. Yeah. I drank water and had a salad. You ate prawns. We've all been in that situation. Medical schemes are exactly the same. If they were just purchasing based on everyone's whim, those of us who are being frugal in our approach, when it came to now needing to be able to access those benefits and there was no money, it would be an issue for us. So medical aids are trying to make good financial decisions, which is why they need to know that the reason and the request has been thought out. We are not just asking for this treatment because it sounds fancy and because obviously pricing, you know, if it's expensive, it must be better, right? That's the theory. It's not. We're asking for it because this particular patient isn't responding to A, B, and C, or they're having this issue on A, B, and C, and that is why we are requesting this medication. And I promise you, if you do that, you have a much better experience with the medical scheme. They cannot argue the logic if you can map out exactly why you're doing it. It makes it very difficult for them to come back and say it's an unreasonable request. So, but again, it comes down to the patient. You don't know who your doctor might disappear tomorrow. You know, things happen all the time. Don't presume that it's your doctor will have that information available 6 months from now. They might not be there. It's the reality we all live with. People, you know, things happen all the time. Take responsibility for yourself. Keep access to those records. We always say to patients, start up a book. And every time, you know, when you've got patients that are seeing 5 or 6 different specialists, there's this presumption that specialists speak to each other. Your cardiologist might be at one hospital and your pulmonologist is at another. They don't see each other. They don't go to the same conferences because they're in different specialities. Don't presume they talk. They don't. One might try phone the other on the day that you're there, and that'll be the last time. If they miss that call, it's done. So take a book with you and say, Doc, please will you just write 3 lines here? And when you go to the pulmonologist, you say, please will you just review all my other specialist feedback that I've had since I came here last. It takes them 3 seconds to review everyone else's feedback, but at least then they know what's happening on the multidisciplinary side. We repeatedly have patients who are prescribed a treatment that is actually contraindicated for something someone else has put them on. So, you know, one doctor's put you on A, the other doctor's put you on B, and those things are actually canceling each other out, and no one can work out things worse, and no one can work out why you're not responding. So it's imperative that we provide the doctors with the tools to have a complete and appropriate picture of what's happening from a treatment perspective.
I think also what I'd like to add there, Kelly, and just to add to everything you're saying, is most of these conditions are chronic. So when they're chronic, they're not going to be static. So the day you visit your doctor, for example, you could be having a good day. So it's so important for the doctor to be aware, when you mentioned the diary and documenting stuff, and we were talking about the dermatology space, and I'm sure Suretha has more comments on this, but I tell patients to take pictures because Murphy's Law, it could be the day that they see the dermatologist or they see me, that their skin's completely cleared. And now to me, it's a mild eczema or it's a moderate eczema, whereas last week they were really, really struggling. And in between, they took some emergency drug, had a shot of something, and now it's suddenly, the severity has changed. So because of the chronic fleeting nature of their symptoms, I often tell patients, and we will chat about that, but even when I'm doing motivations, I love to put photographs. So I'm always telling my patients, take photographs. Take photographs when you're itching, take photographs when you're red, take photographs when your skin is dry. On your worst day, just take the photos. We have the luxury now in the 21st century. We have cell phones and it's so easy. Take these pictures. And, we've got the dates on our phones as well. And we can easily use these because you've got the date, you've got photographic evidence of how this patient is struggling. And that, again, really provides so much of evidence base to the medical aid that this patient needs to access something stronger than what they're already on.
Yeah. 100% agree. And when you book your follow-ups incorrectly. So we book them when things are going pear-shaped. Then you're like, I've got to go back because I'm not feeling well or I'm flaring, etc. And it also doesn't give a great indication because you can generally only remember like the last week. So if you're having a bad day and they say, how much pain are you in? You're going to say a lot because today I'm having pain. But actually, you might have only been in pain for 5 days out of the last 6 months. So, there is a lead time, and that's why just symptom tracking and diary management is essential.
And in dermatology, I know we need to move on to the first Q&A. I have to say that our audience is so responsive today. It's really fantastic that I don't even have to ask for questions. So thank you for that. But in dermatology, we have, specifically when we refer to eczema, then we have the atopic dermatitis control tool that actually gives you the opportunity to document on a week-to-week basis how you were doing. But I must say that I would find, a picture just speaks. What is it, a million or is it 100 words? I'm not sure, Thulja, you have to help me here.
1,000 words, if I'm correct.
1,000 words. Oh, it's a million, thousand. Okay, so something in between. Now, maybe we can just go through a few questions here or even comments. And the one comment that I see here is from Chantal is really one of the things that's been really pressing hard on my heart. Is that in South Africa we are lagging behind so more and more, unfortunately, with the more innovative medications. And I think that's why we have to make a noise. And this is what we're starting to do here. But it really is, the doctors can just do that much. Rare Diseases South Africa can just do that much. We need to hear from patient advocates. We need to hear from patients that are taking their story forward and spreading awareness outside of our country, even to make people aware of the how this divide is getting bigger and bigger. In that Thulja, both of us, we attend international conferences and we are exposed to new medications on a daily basis in our literature and in our medical literature. And these medications are unfortunately not coming to South Africa, or if they do come to South Africa, it's so expensive that and the medical aids don't come to the party. But it still is a question of the question having it needs to be asked, because here we see, for example, that one of the doctors said, one of our attendees says that the doctor said that there's no point in applying. So there's no point in applying for this medication. And if the doctor doesn't apply for the medication at the medical aid, then no one will know that there is actually a need for a particular medication, like Kelly said. And so I think one of the things to say there is that it is important to find the right doctor that does this on a more regular basis, and haven't lost hope yet, I think, because we find that a lot, that doctors lose hope and then they just stop applying, and they just give you the same medication every time, which is not the effective treatment.
Yeah.
But so Kelly, you wanted to say something. I see you're
Yeah.
shaking your head
Yeah,
profusely.
so it comes down to supply and demand, right? You have to prove that there's a demand to get a reduction in price. If you don't have the declines and the rejections, the medical schemes don't see it as a priority. So they, every year when they sit down to do their benefit review, they look at what disease areas have cost them the most money. And now if they're looking and they're saying, okay, we see a rise in need for this particular product. Over this year, we've had 15% of our patients with this condition that have applied for this product. They will spend the time to now try to develop a benefit to support access to that product. If everyone's taken the approach, we're just not going to bother applying because it's too expensive and we're not going to get it, they will never see that there's a demand. So it's imperative the juice is not necessarily worth the squeeze initially, but it gets there. And we have a collective responsibility to each other to make sure that we followed the process. Worst case scenario, the rejection goes on your tax certificate and you get to claim it back from the tax. But it's the worst case scenario. There's still a benefit there and it still is worth it at the end. So please don't feel like the hassle it's too much. I know it's hard work, the pain, but you have to do it. Apply. And I saw that there was a comment from someone in the state facility saying, the clinics don't support you. You have to go through the process there as well. And referral in the state facilities is imperative. So local clinics, everything in our state facilities are based on a need. So the bigger hospitals, the quaternary hospitals have much bigger budgets, and they've got specific facilities and funds for these complex treatments. But you have to be referred there. And referrals don't happen. You have to ask for them. Unfortunately, that is the state of our healthcare system. So ask, Doc, I've been back here 3 times. Nothing's working. Can you please refer me on to another facility? It is your right to ask for that in the event that you're not getting supported. But you have to know to ask. So it's imperative. You've got to drive that process. No one's going to do it for you. And I mean, it's terribly sad. I'd love to live in a world where that wasn't the case and people, were able to access things without it being a tough journey. But unfortunately, that isn't the world we live in. And the quicker we accept what we're dealing with, the easier it becomes in terms of actually advocating to get what you need.
And I actually stand with my feet, my English idioms, or all of these things are being all mashed up tonight. But I'm involved in both sectors, in private as well as public sector. So I agree with you 100% that people need to ask to be referred. And I mean that you will run into, let's say you may run into problems along the way. But that is the only way. Unfortunately, the availability of these medications in the public sector is still a big problem. But I believe that the time will, or the wheel will turn slowly, but it is starting, and it needs to start somewhere. Everything needs to start somewhere. We have a lot of clinical questions here on whether specific things can be combined and those type of things. But that will, I think we'll respond on an individual basis rather, because we're talking more about access today. But thank you so much for all your questions. There is a question here please mention some of the newer topical creams available. So I can, well, I don't think we should actually. So maybe I'll answer that. Sorry. I thought I was going to answer that, but thankfully I just stopped myself. So I will also respond to that.
Just to save you,
Kelly wanted
Suretha.
to say.
No, I just wanted to
Thank you.
explain. I wanted to explain to the audience why that is. We have very, very strict rules and regulations in South Africa around what advice can be given, what medical advice can be given. So I just, often the doctors don't explain why they can't answer the questions. And the reason is that they have an ethical imperative to have seen and asked and gotten further information before they can make any form of recommendation. So that is why. I just wanted to save you there, because I know patients are like, I asked and no one answered, but it is because there is actually some limitations in what can and can't be done. I see that there is a question asking around what medical aids are covering the biologics. All of them and none of them at the same time. Again, it comes back down to who's been motivated correctly. I see every single day, you can have two patients on the exact same medical aid, the exact same plan. One will get approved, one won't. And when we go into why, the one that's been approved has gone with all the information from the outset, a good letter of motivation, a good case, like a good plan. The one that's been declined has got like a script and 3 lines requesting the treatment. So they all cover and they don't cover at the same time. They're all exactly the same. You'll have good and bad cases across the board. There's no medical schemes that separate. They are all what's upholded to the same laws. So, it's not that they all actually have the same duties and responsibilities. It's just the interpretation that sometimes is there.
And I guess how hard you push as well from a patient and from a doctor's perspective, isn't it?
And, doctors are not a party to your medical aid. The medical aid, your membership with your medical aid is a contract between you and the medical scheme. You are the member, you are the contracted party. Your doctor is not a party to that agreement. So another thing that schemes do, which in my view often is a time-saving exercise on their part, is they respond to the patient to say, we've requested further information from your doctor. Right. What is the information that you're needing from them? I'll get it for you. Tell me what you need. Because they might have sent an email to the doctor knowing that the doctor's mailbox is overflowing and they actually only get to check their emails twice a week. And that buys them time. So you have a right to have copies of all that correspondence, exactly what's been requested and exactly what has been necessary.
So we've been addressed by our control team that we have to take a break. But don't forget to continue posting your comments and your questions. We will get to them either here or afterwards. So we're going to take a very, very short break. Have a sip of whatever you're drinking, and then we'll be back.
Every new day brings new opportunities. But if our skin has a problem, so do we. Rough, tensed. If my skin is stressed, how could I relax? No one sees the real me behind my pimples. How I wish I could stop the itching and help her sleep. Problems with our skin make us lose confidence in who we are and how we take on life. Sad, insecure, embarrassed, self-conscious, shy, angry, insecure, lonely. At Eucerin, we want to make a change. With over 100 years of skin science, signature ingredients, and products that work. Clinically proven. However, there's more to it than skin improvement. We believe in the life-changing power of dermatological skincare. We believe if your skin problem is solved and your skin feels better, you feel better. To us, that's much more than skincare.
Skin dryness is a common issue that can affect us all, regardless of age, gender, or skin color. It's associated with skin discomfort, tightness, urge to itch, scaly patches. Whether it's dryness visible to the naked eye or an established diagnosis such as eczema, it can really impact quality of life. Daily life factors as well as skin conditions can alter the skin barrier function. Bioderma expertise is based on ecobiology principles, a deeply respectful approach that considers the global skin ecosystem. Thus, it finds its inspiration in the skin's inner properties and mechanisms to conceive the Atoderm range to address skin dryness for all skin types at every stage of life, providing the skin the essential lipids it needs. Atoderm, a comprehensive range to bring back softness and comfort to the skin, restore the skin barrier in a sustainable way, regain physical well-being and peace of mind. Atoderm, the daily life changer for people with dry and eczema-prone skin.
Hello and welcome back. I hope you are feeling refreshed. We have another few minutes together, not very long. So if you have a question, please post it. Kelly, maybe the two of us can chat a little bit about support groups. How do you what do you see the role of a support group?
So sadly, I think a lot of support groups have to fulfill an administrative burden, which is really not fair to them. So one of the approaches that we've taken as Rare Diseases South Africa is to try provide a forum where passionate people who are willing to provide peer-to-peer support can do that without having to take on the administration burden of running a support group per se. And fundraising and doing all of those things. So we assist them from an administrative perspective, and they can simply do the passionate stuff, the feel-good stuff. Support groups, without a doubt, provide tremendous value. You, as a patient, you want to speak to people who've been through it before. Your doctor saying to you, drink water warm, because that will help you, means nothing. When a patient who's drunk the water warm tells you, it's like, I always refer back to your mom and your mother-in-law, right? When you have a baby and your mother-in-law comes to visit and she says, you know what, you should do this with the baby's nappy. You're like, what do you know? Your mom comes and says, like, hang your baby upside down by the ankles for 3 hours a day. And you're like, that must be the way. Because you have that trust. You have that relationship with your mom that you don't have with your mother-in-law necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the support group. If you're able to access and ask questions and you're speaking to people who are in similar situations, who've been through it, to understand, the advice is so much better. The level of trust is there. And the support groups provide invaluable experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unfortunate because of how they've been notoriously set up. They often don't stick around very long, or they don't have succession plans, etc. So we run quite a few dermatology support groups. Like we've got one for hidradenitis suppurativa. There's quite a few of the dermatological conditions that we run support groups for, and honestly, they make such a big difference. So if you're one of those people that feel like you've got the passion and you're willing to try help other patients, please reach out, because we're always looking for new groups to add.
Yeah. No, the only sad thing that there are many sad things that I see as a dermatologist, but one of the things that I see is that we have a very, very small group of active members on the group, and then which is now social media based. So when someone posts something, then no one responds. And I think that then they stop posting. So maybe I can ask our attendees that, engage on the group, see if you can help someone else, because I've had, when I see adults with really severe atopic eczema, then I would ask whether they would want to speak with one of the established members of the group, so that they can actually discuss. Yes, so you also don't sleep at night. You're also up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you're itching, and that's because people feel so alone if they don't discuss this.
Absolutely. And that's essentially what peer-to-peer support is, right? It's finding your village. It's finding people who are like you, who are going through the same things. And, we often separate caregivers from patients as well. And we provide caregivers with their own space where they can say exactly how they feel. And when they're having a really bad day and they're completely overwhelmed and exhausted and have just had enough, they can say that and they don't get judged for it. I think the important thing is for patients to feel like their support group is a safe place, that they have no judgment, that they're not gaslit for having an opinion. You can have a difference of opinions and it's okay. Some people might want to choose to be treated, others choose not to. Some people might want to go with A, others want to go with B. That is okay. All of them are fine. We have discussions around things like traditional medicine. Culturally, people have beliefs. Someone saying to you that's not how it's supposed to be doesn't make it any less real for you. That is your belief, and we all need to respect each other. So there's ways to be responsible and to be able to support each other with having a difference of opinion. And I think it's so nice to see people who are able to be supported appropriately through those groups. It's so heartwarming. And to see the knowledge transfer and, how someone wouldn't have to have, gone through the nightly itch for 3 weeks. Someone would have given them advice on day 2 that allows them to have, a quicker response time. And your doctors are not always available to you. So being able to ask for practical advice from people who are going through it makes the world of difference.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. Thulja, we're gonna move on to you now. We have you have a case that you would a challenging experience that you've had recently with one of your patients.
Yeah, so I think just to add, and while I was listening to Kelly and your chat, I decided to flip which patient I'm going to discuss, because I think when we're talking about the support groups, one of the things that I find so important with the support groups is many of these patients are completely isolated. So I see kids and I see teenagers and adolescents, and they don't have social lives. They don't want to go out because they're so afraid of being ridiculed and being teased, and they're ashamed and they're embarrassed. And when they know that there's another person that also itches till there's blood on the sheets at night, and there's another person that's had the same thoughts and has the same feelings, and there's another person who's grown up going to camp or going on sleepovers, having had the same experiences, being afraid of summer because they don't want to wear shorts and they don't want to wear sleeveless clothes, or don't want to go to the beach because they're too worried that people are going to see their skin. When you know someone else is sharing your experience, you realize that firstly, it's not so bad. I'm not the only one. God hasn't done this to me, because I've had patients saying to me, why me? Why do I have siblings who don't have this problem? And I'm the only one who has that problem. And just before I tell you about the case, I think, going back to the medical aids, is people look at it as a dermatological or a skin condition. But to me, I think, and this is how medical aids need to start seeing it, if we make a big enough noise, is emotionally, psychologically, and psychiatrically. Because I see patients who've had psychiatric diagnoses, been put on anxiolytics, which are drugs for anxiety, put on antidepressants, purely because of their skin. When you take a full history from them, you realize that all of their anxiety and all of their depression and then stress comes directly from their skin. And if we can make people understand, and that's where our patients come in, making a big enough noise to make the insurance companies realize this is not just a problem in our skin. People are having suicidal thoughts because of this. Mental health is a huge issue globally. It's become a big issue here as well. I think that, medical aids are going to have to start taking just a skin condition. That's how they see it. Just a skin condition far more seriously. And one of the cases that you had asked me to mention, Suretha, was a young boy that I had seen here in Johannesburg in his early 20s, and was going through something at home when I saw him. His parents were separating. So there was already a bit of family stress. But this boy had had eczema throughout his life. And remember when we first spoke about the novel therapies, I said that your skin is part of your immune system. So patients who have eczema listening to this will know this to be true. When you're more stressed and when you're more active and when you're scratching and itching out of anxiety, your skin is worse, because our immune system reacts to our emotional stress as well. So for some reason, and I think emotional stress played a big role, his skin had just exacerbated massively in his early 20s. I had seen him just after the pandemic. He loved the pandemic because it meant he could stay at home and he didn't have to face a single human being. That included his own father. He didn't have to look at anybody, he didn't have to see anybody. He worked from home, he worked at a laptop. The minute his work had said, it's no more working from home, you've got to present yourself in the office. And because he struggled so much at home with his eczema, and because he was indoors and there was dust mite allergy affecting it, his skin had really exacerbated badly, and he quit his job. And when he quit his job, he then had financial trouble, and he's now got the single mother trying to support him. Every time he got a staph infection on his skin from all the scratching and itching, he needed to go to the doctor. She was barely struggling to pay for all the doctor's bills. And his skin had reached to such a bad level that this boy was suicidal. And he was one of the first patients that I actually, and this was when one of the biologics that we mentioned for atopic dermatitis or eczema was first approved. It had arrived to African shores. And I said, if there's a chance that this is going to save this boy's life, I didn't look at it as a skin condition. For me, I always say this to everyone, and Suretha's heard me say this a lot. Eczema is a systemic disease. It's a disease of your body. It's not just a rash on your skin. I applied, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention the medical aid, but I applied and I wrote an entire paragraph about some of his suicidal thoughts, which I had sat down and chatted to him about. And obviously with his permission, because this is personal information, with his permission, I wrote a paragraph about this. I asked him to write in his own words what his skin does to him, how it makes him feel. And I have, and this is as a side comment, I have young females I apply for, and boys. Boys generally are very to the point and not very descriptive. I find that the girls are much more eloquent in writing, emotionally how it affects them. But I think this boy had reached his tether where he wrote exactly how it made him feel, to the point that it had made him suicidal. I got his mom to write a letter. And of course, when we do the motivation, we get the patient to fill out the eczema control form. We fill out the scoring index. And I really was ready for a fight, because I realized that this was not something that was going to cure this boy's skin. This was something that was going to change this boy's life. And after I wrote the second letter, and I phoned the medical aid at least 5 times, saying to them that this mom has phoned me a few times and this boy is threatening to kill himself, and I believe him, I actually got an approval for him for one of these biologics. It was not a very high medical aid. And this is something else, and I'm sure Kelly knows this, but a lot of patients are under the impression, and the insurance companies want us to believe this, that you have to be on a very high medical aid. You have to pay a massive premium. Only if you pay a massive premium and you're on a top tier Rolls-Royce plan, then you would qualify for biologics. Medical care doesn't work like that. Either you have cancer or you don't have cancer. Either you are severe or you're not severe. And you shouldn't have to pay a specific level just to access something that you have a right to access. And with this boy, obviously we won. And I'm happy to report that this is completely, and I have many cases like this. Suretha knows about my other young patient because she's made a video which Suretha has watched, talking about how it had changed her life. And if I may just add, Suretha, recently with that patient who you know about, she's now completed 2 years on a biologic, and we just did a follow-up interview with her about 2 weeks ago. And while I was watching her speak, I actually started tearing, because there were things that she said in that interview which she never shared with me. I've known her for 5 years, and I believed that as the doctor, I was holding her hand, and I was holding her mom's hand. And she said to me, and I'm going to share this because she's a patient who really wants to help people. She said that one day her mom doesn't live with her. Her mom tried to phone her 3 times and she did not answer. And she phoned the police because she was afraid that she had done something and that she had considered killing herself. And her mom was beside herself. And that made me realize not only how much it impacts the patient, but how much something as simple as what people and medical insurance companies deem a rash on the skin, how badly this impacts patients' quality of life. And patients need to, I've been doing this with my patients need to speak up. Patients need to say, I was suicidal. Patients need to say, I don't go out. I cannot work. Patients need to come out, even if it's anonymously, that I got put on antidepressants. I see these patients. It is happening. I have terrible anxiety. I do not sleep at night. This has impacted my entire life. And the medical aids need to hear this coming from patients, because like Kelly said, the contract is not with us. It's the patient and the medical aid, and the patient is their client. And the medical aids need to realize that their clients need these medications.
Yeah.
No.
They have to find a voice and scream it
Yeah.
from the
Yes.
rooftops.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I must say that we have had such an amazing conversation today that I think that we're not going to have time to go into more questions. Thulja, I hope you're safe there. It looks like there's a thunderstorm behind you.
And I'm
I
sure
can
you
see
can hear
that.
the rain.
Well, we need
Lovely.
it.
Lovely. And I think we will definitely, I mean, I know that we'll definitely have the two of you ladies back, because there's so much that we still have to say. But I mean, this is a good starting point, I think. The important points, I think, were discussed about the importance of a patient taking their health journey in their own hands, and and speaking up, and this is not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector. Kelly, I don't know if you have any concluding remarks.
Just to say, I understand that this is a really, really tough journey. There are people there that are willing to help you. Reach out. Don't be scared to share your story. Don't be scared to own it. Don't be scared to find your voice and rattle cages at medical schemes or at your local hospital, etc. It is worth it at the end, and we are here to support you. Please reach out. If you feel like you need the help, reach out.
And Thulja, maybe you can just give advice on where patients can look for doctors that can actually assist them with this journey.
I think depending on the condition that you have, obviously, Kelly deals with all rare diseases, but when we're looking at the eczema space, Suretha might be able to help you with a list of qualified dermatologists. She's somebody who has enough experience on biologics herself. You don't need to look further. But we have a website, the Allergy Foundation of South Africa website, where you get a list of accredited allergists, a list of dermatologists, pulmonologists, ENT surgeons who have a special interest in many of these conditions which treat your immune system. So reach out to the Allergy Foundation of South Africa if you're not sure about somebody in your area. You can look it up on the website. You can contact somebody. You can contact AFSA, and you have a right to access. So, my parting shot would be, I think I was a third-year medical student, and I was in a rural hospital, but provincial, but very rural, because I did my undergraduate in KZN. It was in a township called Umlazi. It was Prince Masheni Hospital. And I remember the consultant surgeon there saying to us that, and I never forgot this, healthcare is healthcare. It should not be public and private. Healthcare is healthcare. If you're sick and if you have a problem, yes, there might be a difference in how fancy the hospital is and how fancy the coffee is and what type of spoon and bowl and bed sheets and linen you use. But the medical care, the drugs, and the expertise should not be compromised, whether you have money and you don't have money. And that's something that always stuck with me, which is why Suretha and I like to share space in academics, in the government sector, but also in the private sector, because you really realize that really there should be a bridge connecting the two. It shouldn't be so isolated.
Absolutely. And Thulja is correct when she says on the Allergy Foundation of South Africa's website, you can find doctors' names who can assist you. And then, of course, you're always very welcome to make a post on the support groups as well. We're more active on Facebook than on Instagram because I am too old for no, I'm too young for Instagram, I think. No, too old for Insta. No, yeah. So I sorry. Facebook is where I function best. And then the one, I think, just as a parting thought from myself, the one thing that we have to realize is that we are not talking about the vast majority of cases here. We're talking about a very small group of patients that will need all of these advanced medications, because if that pyramid is still here somewhere, Leslie, I'm not sure if we're going to show it to our audience, but we have a pyramid of care, and the skin care that makes out the biggest part of and plays the most important role in our eczema cases, in the eczema treatment. And then we get to the more specialized medications, etc. Then I would like to greet you, and I hope you have a wonderful and a safe festive season. And then for our eczema sufferers, please stay cool, and please don't forget to wear your sunscreen, and practice your sun avoiding behaviors. So wearing your hat, and this is now a dermatologist speaking. And if the kids want to swim, let them swim. Just apply lots of moisturizers afterwards. We have a very exciting program planned for 2025, and we keep your eyes on social media to see when we are having our next session. And with that, I would like to greet you. And Thulja, as I said, I hope you're safe there with all that thunderstorms. It is a bit shocking there going on behind you. But this is, oh, good heavens. Okay, then have and safe travels for you, Kelly, as well. And we'll be in touch. Thank you very much for your wonderful contribution, and Thulja for your contribution. Good evening, everyone.